the madness going on in the United Kingdom, I have a feeling things are going to heat up significantly over in the Middle East, perhaps this weekend. Now, this follows the killing of a Hamas leader and Iran vowing to avenge that. This is the political leader of Hamas, Haniyeh, and he was taken out in Teheran. Now, of course, Hamas is one of the poodles, the lapdogs of Iran, one of their proxies, and they were having a bit of a get-together over there, and it turns out there is an incendiary device that was left in the guest house. And reports are that it was actually a woman wearing a burqa who went in and then snuck out under the cover of darkness, and kaboom, off it went, and bye-bye to the political leader of Hamas. Well, of course, Iran aren't about to take this lying down. Now, the last time they said there was going to be all hell to pay, they rained down missiles, drones, rockets on Israel, all of which were basically intercepted by UK and US and French forces with the help of the Saudis, and taking off from airports in Qatar. Well, they've turned around and said, we're going to do it again. This time have threatened any Gulf neighbouring countries who might think of aiding and abetting the interception of those missiles and drones of, again, some sort of retribution. But should we expect something big to happen? What if anything did actually hit Israel? What would happen then? Could this, in the blink of an eye, escalate into a conflagration, the likes of which we have not seen for the best part of a century? There's so many more things going on in geopolitics, so who better to mop it all up than someone who I greatly admire, Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer. Philip, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, good morning. It's a Saturday morning and I'm up early.
I know, that's how I feel. I'm up early talking about the possibility of World War III. What a delightful way to start the day.
Well, yes, we've been talking about World War III quite a bit, and it is a very real possibility, unfortunately.
Well, there's so much I want to talk to you about today, but let's start with this one, because this is massive, and last time this happened, I was up all night watching Flight Tracker and looking at all the sort of passage of aircraft and airspaces being shut. And I was tuned in simultaneously to rolling news channels to watch, really, essentially, whether or not I should start thinking of building an Anderson shelter. What do you think is going to happen? Is it going to be this weekend? Is something going to happen?
Something's definitely going to happen, whether it's this weekend or not. I'm not sure. Interestingly, this morning, the Institute for the Study of War has put out their usual daily analysis, and within that analysis, they've said that anonymous Western intelligence sources have said that they may attack Israel. There's a Jewish holiday coming up on the 12th and 13th of August, so they may leave their retaliation until then. Will there be a retaliation? Yes, because the Iranians have lost face. Much more than happened previously, because the Hamas leader was a guest of the newly being inaugurated and now newly inaugurated president of Iran, and that has cost them dearly in the eyes of those that are Iranian proxies are around the place. So they have to respond, and they have to respond significantly.
And what I find fascinating about all of this is the last time there was a retaliatory strike, it almost seemed choreographed. There was sort of warning given, we're going to do it at this time. Everything just sort of moved in slow motion. There was a sort of, a barrage of missiles and rockets coming over airspace, really, so hours. And I think pretty much every single one of them was intercepted and taken down. So Iran could be seen to be launching everything it had at Israel, but thankfully nothing struck, and so there didn't need to be retaliation again, and thus it escalates. Do you think a similar gentleman's agreement, if you will, is going to take place this time, so that Iran can sort of show to its people it's got all this stuff, it's got all these rockets, it's launching them, it's fighting back, but actually sort of manage to save face and at the same time make sure that there is no excuse for any sort of retaliatory actions to then take place against them, because, frankly, they can't afford that to happen?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head with that final sentence. Iran can't afford a regional conflict. They are great with all the talk that's coming in, but their military capability, they know that if that got destroyed, then we've got this ancient old proxy war going on between two elements of Islam being fought out by Iran and Saudi Arabia. Iran, if it's destroyed militarily, will start to lose that. So there's an element of this dancing going on, and we're already seeing that in some of the commentary. The United States are replacing one of their carrier groups by moving another into the area, but that just means that there'll be an additional one in the area for a period of time. They're moving more air defense ships, and they're moving another squadron of aircraft into the region. Now, that will take a few days. That suggests to me that maybe the Institute for the Study of Wars analysis that it's not coming till 12th and 13th of August could be more accurate than it coming this weekend. The Jordanians in the last few days have said that they will shoot down anything that overflies their territory, and surprise, surprise, Jordan just happens to be in between Iran and Israel. So there's a lot of moves going on. There's a lot going on in the background. But here I think there's a real push for the Iranians to involve not just rockets coming from Iran, as happened last time, and one got through and one child was injured, but nobody killed. But we're likely to see, because only a few hours beforehand, a senior Hezbollah commander was killed by Israel, and Israel has admitted that. Hezbollah are going to want to get into the action, and the Houthis don't want to be left out. They will want to come in as well. So we could see Israel being attacked from multiple different angles simultaneously, and that leaves the danger of something getting through being very, very real indeed. And if that does get through, Netanyahu will not be able to sit on his hands and play the games that Iran's doing. He will be expected to respond, and respond to the next level. So we're running up that escalatory ladder very, very quickly at the moment.
Where does this leave some of the neighbouring Gulf countries? Iran has threatened countries such as Saudi, such as Qatar, saying, look, if you even allow US aircraft to take off from your air bases to intercept these missiles, we will fight back against you as well. There's been a lot of criticism, particularly of Qatar, in recent weeks. They have condemned the killing of the leader of Hamas. They, of course, were the headquarters for Hamas for a long time. I've been informed that this was actually the intention of America, so the CIA could keep eyes on. But where are they going to stand in all of this? Because last time, something that I found quite reassuring, actually, was basically watching those Abraham Accords signed underneath the stewardship of Donald Trump in the White House kind of come into effect. We suddenly saw Arab countries defending Israel, at least enabling Western allies to defend Israel. Are they going to do the same? You've mentioned Jordan. Are they, Qatar and Saudi, going to do the same this time around?
I think we will see the same. We have to separate what we hear coming out as public statements, because you have to recognise that what Iran is saying publicly is for its domestic audience, but you increase that domestic audience to its proxy audience that there is around the Middle East. So it has to say stuff publicly. Going on behind closed doors, Saudi, Qatar, and other Middle East nations will be turning around to the Grand Ayatollah and saying, you really don't want to do this, mate. Just ease off. And of course, we've got Saudi and Iran at loggerheads anyway, and that's why they're fighting the proxy war in Yemen. It's very, very complicated indeed. Egypt's got a big part to play in this, and in acting behind closed doors and trying to keep a lid on it as much as they possibly can. But as soon as you start putting ballistic missiles on drones with explosives and start firing them at centres of population and all the rest of it, the potential for something to go wrong is huge. And that's why we are in a very, very dangerous position at the moment.
We are indeed. Now, I've also been speaking to other people over in America, associates of the Pentagon, who are wondering whether Iran might even start using the theatre, the spotlight, to carry out potential nuclear tests. I don't know, as somebody who's connected so very closely with the intelligence sector, where you think Iran are when it comes to developing a nuclear warhead.
Well, it's interesting. We've had Iran's years of developing a nuclear warhead. Iran will never get enough enriched uranium to comments, just over a month ago from, I think it was Secretary of State Blinken, saying that Iran or his team saying that Iran is only a couple of weeks off producing enough weapons-grade uranium. Now, producing enough weapons-grade uranium and turning that into a nuclear bomb are two completely different things, and turning it into a working nuclear device that you can put on the head of a missile is something different again. But Iran is doing a lot of backdoor deals with Russia, with what Russia's doing inside Ukraine. And it would not surprise me at all if part of those deals did not involve trying to get nuclear technology or nuclear warheads for Iran. Now, why do I think they haven't got it at the moment? Because Tehran still exists. I think if the Israelis thought that Tehran had got their hands on a nuclear warhead, then the Israelis would take a preemptive strike and potentially a preemptive nuclear strike against Iran. We're playing big time here at the moment.
We really are, aren't we? And why do you think that, Israel took the pretty bold action? And actually, surprisingly for Israel, they didn't confess to doing this, although normally they have this way of keeping everything quite neutral and saying nothing at all when it comes to targeted assassinations. But why have they decided at this moment in time to take out the head honchos of Iran's proxies?
Well, they seem to be trying to take the head honchos out of all of the different organizations. As I said, we saw senior Hezbollah commander killed in Beirut a few hours beforehand. And the Israelis will have started a program of trying to take out senior commanders across the board. They may not know the exact day, date, time that they're doing it, because they'll have used other organizations and other people and set them off in their tasks and given them a degree of autonomy. But the way it looks, it's interesting why they took this particular Hamas commander out. On one hand, he's seen in Hamas terms as a moderate. He was part of the go-between and part of the negotiation team that was there. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and he could have been someone that had ordered particular attacks in Israel that was causing particular problems around the place, because he didn't sit in Gaza. He wasn't representing the Palestinians in Gaza. He was sitting in his multi-million-dollar apartment in Qatar with his billions of dollars sitting in his bank account, enjoying his rich lifestyle, and pontificating about how the Gazans should suffer. And therefore, it might have been better for him to be removed in the Israeli eyes. They're coming at things from a completely different perspective than us.
Let's talk about Russia now, because we always need to talk about Russia, because they're always involved in everything. They're involved, as you say, with helping to aid and abet Iran in developing nuclear technology. In return, they get all sorts of bits and bobs in their war against Ukraine from Iran. But I see a little pattern of things taking place at the moment, and I sniff the Kremlin in a lot of it. We just had reports today that there have been similar disruptions to German infrastructure on the railway, sabotage, as we saw in Paris ahead of the Olympic Games. There am I thinking Russia. And actually looking at a lot of the craziness and the conflagration now happening on our streets. I put out a tweet last night, joining dots, and some people have said, wow, I get it, I see it. Other people have said, is that your tinfoil hat you're putting on again, Alex? So I want to run it past you, because we often have our is it tinfoil hat time moment, and you're definitely a sensible man who doesn't jump to conclusions. But what I laid out was this. What I know is that Russia, as well as other ne'er-do-well hostile regimes, at least has a small part to play, if not a very big part to play, in getting migrants in a mass exodus out of Africa, out of the Middle East, onto boats and into the West. We know that China is doing a lot of this, flying people over to the borders of America. And we know the Wagner mercenaries are operating in Africa. And we've actually seen them taking coachloads of people to rattle fences, the borders of Belarus and Poland. We also know that hostile regimes have a big part to play in filling this country, flooding this country with psychotropic drugs. We know that a huge part of the cocaine and heroin, and especially when it comes to these neochemical drugs, your fentanyls, your spice, and so on and so forth, that they're also coming in with great thanks to hostile regimes. We know that Russia has a huge part to play when it comes to the dissemination of information online and bot farms creating false posts. And actually, certainly when it comes to Iran and the pro-Palestine stuff and the propaganda in favour of Hamas about numbers and things and atrocities that might be happening in Gaza, inciting people to go out and exact revenge. And we also know that when it comes to demonstrations on the streets of the United Kingdom, that in part some of this, I'm not saying there hasn't been an overboiling pot for a long time now, but in part some of this has been triggered by fake news channels suggesting the perpetrator of what happened in Southport was, first of all, they gave out a false name. And I see this myself as a very intelligent, ecosystem, if you will, that the enemies of the United Kingdom, the enemies of France, the enemies of Germany, the enemies of America, the enemies of Canada, the enemies of Australia are frankly having a laugh right now. They've got the whip hand because they're filling us with all these unwanted migrants. They're filling us with psychotropic drugs. They're filling us with disinformation online. They're rattling the cage when it comes to trying to mount pressure on the British people to go out and protest. And they're sitting back and loving watching the lot of it.
Well, the last time we put our tinfoil hats on together in the studio, we were 100% right. And I think you're 100% right here. There are Russian fingerprints over everything. And then backing those Russian fingerprints up, there are Chinese fingerprints around it as well. The bot farms that are helping to stir up the trouble that's going on around the UK at the moment are doing just that. They're helping to stir it up. Putin isn't sitting behind his desk and saying, we're going to stimulate riots here tonight and stimulate other riots there tomorrow night, and you're to go out and burn a police station down. No, they can see things simmering, and they will then turn the heat up and make it boil, and whenever it's boiling they'll see the vapors coming off, and they'll try and light those vapors using disinformation and pushing that around the place. And the sabotage that's going across Europe, across France, and now into Germany, is them testing out what they may need to do if there's a conflict as well. They've got a perfect vehicle to try and disrupt with the Olympics and with everything else that's going on across Europe. What they're trying to do is they're trying to cause as much disruption so that internal politics inside countries in Europe is focused on everything that's going on inside, and they've got less effort to focus on what's going on outside, and they don't care as much. It's the old Chinese proverb of a death by 1,000 cuts. No one cut is going to cause any real damage, but put them all together, and that is causing huge damage across the board. And you look at the disruption that's going on across the world through the drugs, through the protests, through the riots, through the sabotage, through other things that are going on. And this is where Russia is having a real effect because they're losing on the battlefield.
Thank you, Philip, for confirming what I already knew to be true. I love putting on my tinfoil hat in your company. Philip Ingram, it's been delightful having you on the show today. We're going to take a short break now, but when I come back, we're going to be looking again at some of that disruption taking place across the UK. I mean, disruption puts it mildly. The rioting, the protests, what is going on? Is everybody out there really a far-right thug? And if you haven't done so already and you're lying in bed this morning with your phone in your hand and you happen to have a Twitter account, I actually implore you to go and look at the hashtag #WeAreFarRightThugs and look at the evil faces of all the skinheads and the monsters out there at the moment in Britain. It will make you smile. Back after this.